Hello, and welcome to the ISD PTSA Special Education Committee webinar. Welcome back for those who saw our first installment. This is our second one, and joining me again is Dr. Dana Bailey, who is the Special Services Executive Director with the Issaquah School District. Welcome, Dr. Bailey.
Thanks for having me again. It's good to see you.
Good to see you as well. My name is Betsy Grant. I'm the chair of the Issaquah Council PTSA Special Education Committee. And what we are doing is we are creating a series of short webinars that are approximately 15 to 20 minutes in length, just answering 3 to 4 questions from the community regarding ISD special services. So our hope is to provide ISD families with special education students a resource for some answers on common issues. So if you would like to submit questions for future webinars, you can please send your questions to special-education@issaquahptsa.org. Or you can join our Facebook group, which is Issaquah Special Education PTSA Committee. And you can get information on that Facebook group or suggest questions for future webinars. So let's just jump right in with the first question. In our previous webinar, we talked about how some students in the LRC 1 program are really struggling and they're not making progress in a fully remote format. You responded at the time that families should meet with their IEP team and request some limited in-person support. I've heard from the community that families are being told that that's not an option. So there might be a disconnect somewhere along the line. So how should families push back or escalate their request if their team is not aware of the option that you presented?
I think that's a fair question. And since we last met, parents should have received the progress monitoring reports if their student was at preschool, elementary, or middle school, since the first trimester is now done. And high school students should receive their report cards as soon as the semester finishes in the next week. And that question about receiving in-person services is going to be tied to the data. So if the parents believe their student is not making progress and they now have the first trimester, first semester progress monitoring report, the best step is to request an IEP meeting to discuss the in-person services availability and then to bring forward the data. So if the parents have already had a meeting and the meeting did not result in in-person services, I think it's fine to ask again and be very specific to include a principal or a special ed director and say that your request for this meeting is to discuss in-person services and to review the data. When the updated MOU is complete, that brings any of the students back to school, this kindergarten, first, second, third grade plan, it may make this process much more fluid.
Thank you. So that kind of brings us to my next question. So there have been steps taken recently to prepare for kindergarten through 5th graders to return to hybrid in-person learning. The survey went out and parents were asked to make those decisions. When a return date is determined, how will services for LRC 1 students change, both for families who choose to return to hybrid in person or for those who remain fully remote?
That's really important. And it's important for all families because after we get the elementaries back in, we'll be looking at middle schools and on. So here's what I believe is true about the return for in-person services and what might happen to families. So if families, parents, and students elect to remain in full remote, the special education services will continue to be provided remotely, and families can expect to receive all specially designed instruction. In our right now data, it looks like the students assigned to an elementary school will remain with their current special education teacher if they are staying full remote, because it does not look like we need to make any changes there. So if the family chooses to remain in full remote, all the services will be provided as they are now, and they are likely to be provided by the same person. There will be a schedule change, because if their remote lessons are in the morning and then there are some kids in the morning in person, then those remote lessons will have to go to the afternoon. So parents can expect a schedule change is highly likely. Now, if families elect to return to the hybrid placement, two factors are important, and it comes back to the IEP and the location of services. If the special education services were to be delivered in the general education location, listed under that tab of location on the IEP, those services will be delivered in the 3.5 hours of in-person time in the schedule in the morning. If the services were listed on the IEP as special education location, so we might think of that as pull-out or resource room, then the student may continue to receive those services in a remote setting, as they have been this year, if that delivery has been successful. Now, if it hasn't been successful and the students receiving SDI remotely isn't working, that's the time to request that the services be delivered in person. And it would either be done then by pulling them out of their 3.5 hours of in-person time, or making arrangements for the student to either stay later for those services or come back later in the afternoon. So the underpinnings are, we're trying to deliver anything that the student might need as we come back to school, and it will involve a schedule change. For students coming back in person, I believe that it will be at least a 50-50 chance that the student will receive a new special education teacher, might be a new special education para, because that puzzle piece, putting all those puzzle pieces together on who's remote, who's in person, what grade they're in, it's like a puzzle that has no picture on the front. So just fitting it all together. So the important part is to look back at the IEP and see what the location is of services. If it's a general education location, those services will be provided during their 3.5 hours in their, say, regular kindergarten class. If it's special education location, it might be pulled out of their 3.5 hours. It might be after that. It might be later in the afternoon.
Wow, that is a lot to digest.
It is.
Thankfully, people have videos so they can go backwards and listen to that more than once. Thank you for all of that detail. I think that'll be really helpful for parents to be able to anticipate as things change, and then who knows, whenever that happens to come along. So switching gears a little bit, talking about IEP meetings in general. So IEP meetings can be really a stressful experience for families. Parents often feel they have, I've heard from parents who feel they often have limited input. Some have been told that goals are already set in place with only small changes or tweaks to be made at the IEP meeting. Time is often tight because the team has a limited window of availability, and parents often feel rushed, or that they only have like one shot to make a plan for a whole year. Can you just describe the experience that the ISD would like parents to have? And if you could suggest some steps that could be taken by families or IEP teams to kind of improve the process from the parent input point of view.
Thank you for sharing that feedback. And I hear you, and it is really, really important, because our goal is that parents are full and complete partners in the IEP process. It doesn't mean signing off on the IEP after it's been written and finished and it's just sort of a closure. So I would share with you that's not the goal of what we're trying to accomplish, and we will work to improve the experience of parents as full partners in IEP development. And if parents have this experience, here are some things that I might suggest. I would encourage them to ask the team to amend the draft IEP that they have to include all of the parent feedback. So I hear you say that sometimes the parent feedback doesn't make it into the IEP. So if it's not there and they see the draft IEP, I think it's fair to say, I would like to see my feedback represented in this IEP, and it's a draft form when they see it. So that should be a possible. Another one would be to say, if the parents feel rushed and that doesn't feel finished when the allotted time is, say they were given an hour and 90 minutes and the allotted time is up, to have parents in the meeting say, I don't feel finished. I would like to schedule a continuation of this IEP, and then the teams open up their books, their schedules, and take a look at when a continuation of the IEP can be scheduled so that the parents feel like they have a full and robust opportunity to participate. I think that might give you at least 2 ideas about how for the Issaquah School District personnel to meet you at the table as parents in a full collaboration, and to make sure that people don't feel rushed and they don't feel like it's done and the meeting is just a finishing act.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Hopefully that will be helpful. And if I get any additional feedback, I certainly will let you know. But those are 2 great things to keep in mind. So those are all of the questions that we have today. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope the information provided has been helpful. Again, if you would like to suggest questions for future webinars, please send them to special-education@issaquahptsa.org. Also, again, I invite you to join our Facebook group, which is the Issaquah Special Education PTSA Committee. It's a growing community where we seek to find ways to support and learn from one another, and everyone is welcome. So thank you again, Dana, for joining me today, and we will see you next time.
Thank you. We really do appreciate the opportunity to work together to answer the questions that are out in the parent community. It helps us grow.
Thank you.